guys, how you doing? Happy 2021. I know it has been long since I last posted. I took a well-needed break, but then guess who's back? Karibuni sana to my channel, and today we are going to be talking about seeking only the approval of God, or rather seeking to please God only. Welcome. So when you read Galatians chapter 1 verse 10, Paul is asking, am I now seeking to please man or God? Am I seeking favor with God or man? And then he adds, if I was still seeking to please man, I will not be a bond servant to Christ. So from Paul's statement, we can tell that it is impossible to please both God and man. You will be tempted to compromise your values and your beliefs when you choose to please both. And God is asking us to choose or to seek to please him alone, because it is easier that way. And I would like us to look at the example of Christ. When Christ came, he knew that he had been sent by God, and he knew the work that God had given him. He knew his assignment, and he understood that God had already approved him. So when he came, he was not looking to be approved by man. He was not looking to be praised by man. He was not looking to be honored or glorified by man, because already God had already put a seal of approval on him. And so you will find him saying, I am only pleased to do the will of my Father. I came only to do the will of my Father. And so we find him healing the sick and raising the dead. But he was not doing all this to get glory or to be famous. He was doing this because this was the will of his Father. In the scriptures, you find Christ saying, I only do what I see my Father do, and I only say what I hear my Father say. So Christ was not doing things to please people. He was doing what he was seeing his Father do, and he was saying what he was hearing his Father say. All right? So number one, Christ knew who the source of his power was, and he spent his time with God. Sometimes he will wake up early and go to spend time with God. Other times he will just draw people away from him and spend time with God, because he knew he drew his strength from God, and he knew he got his assignment was from God. So he had to keep in constant communion with God. And even though Christ did a lot of miracles, imagine there are people who found issues with him. For example, when he healed the guy who was sick for 38 years, after he told that guy to rise up and take his mat and go home, people, instead of seeing this miracle that had happened to this man, that for 38 years he was sick, and this one day Christ has healed him, they chose to find issues with Christ and started telling him, it is on Sabbath and you have healed and you have broken the law. So if Christ, as good as he was, as great as he was, and with the things that he did, was not able to please men, was not able to gain the approval of some people, why are we as Christians struggling to get approval from people? This story of Christ should let us know that it is from God that we get our approval. We also read in the Gospel of John that after Christ performed his first miracle of turning water into wine, later on he went to Jerusalem, and there he healed the sick and did miracles, signs and wonders, and some people believed in him. But what I learned from here is that Christ did not entrust himself to the people, because he knew their hearts. He knew what was in people's hearts, that today they may praise you, tomorrow they will be tearing you down. And Christ had died to the praise of people. He was not looking for fame. He was not looking for to be celebrated or anything. He was only seeking to do the will of his Father. And if we can learn anything from Christ, is to seek only the will of God. If God has called you to do something, do it without caring what people think. Whether they cheer you on or not, that is not your problem, because you get your approval from God. And it will be so sad, because we will stand one day in judgment before God, and then you to give an account of what you did with what God gave you, and then you start telling God, God, I didn't do what you called me to do because I was scared of what people will say. Can you imagine you telling the King of the universe that you are scared, that you didn't do what he called you to do because you were scared of what people were gonna say? So do not look for praise. If God has called you to even start a YouTube channel, a Christian YouTube channel, imagine if you get only 2 subscribers. It is not your job. You just do what God has called you to do. If He has called you to share the gospel, share the gospel. And if God wants you to be known in America and Tanzania or Uganda, that is His job. Your job is not to look for fame. Your job is to seek the approval of your Father. Your job is to do what your Father has called you to do. And everything you do is supposed to give God glory. And if God is pleased to let other people know about you, then that will be His job. Your job is not to worry about that. And Christ knew this very well, and He spent time with God. And so, we wonder why nowadays we are depressed and we don't have peace and we don't have joy. The reason is we have stopped spending time with God. They who wait on the Lord shall be strong. So we get our strength from God. The Bible also says that the presence of the Lord brings liberty. In the presence of the Lord there is peace, and in the presence of the Lord there is joy. So our joy is not determined by what we are going through or the amount of money in our bank account. You can have no money in the bank account, but you are still joyful, you are still happy, because our joy is from God. And so we have to learn to spend time with God, because when Christ was saying, I do only what I see my Father do, and I say what I see my Father say, it's because He spent time with God. And so as we spend time with God, He will even tell us what He wants to do in the now, right now. Maybe you have a neighbor God wants you to witness to, but you'd rather do anything else but spend time seeking the Lord. So if we want to live an authentic life, just like Christ did, we have to spend time with God, and we have to be keen on doing what we have been called to do. And then as we end this vlog, I would like to let you know that after Christ finished His work, after Christ finished what His Father had called Him to do, guess what happened? He was given a name that is above every name. He was glorified. He was seated at the right hand of God. Like, He was not looking for these things, but He did His assignment, He finished it, and God gave Him a name that is above every name. And at the mention of His name, every knee will have to bow. Alright? So instead of looking for fame, seek only to do the will of your Father. And if He wants you to have 1 million followers, that is His job. Let us just be concerned in doing the will of our Father and making Him happy, and just making Him smile. I want to get a well done from my Father, a pat on the back telling me, well done, my faithful servant. And as a parting shot, I would like to give you God's testimony about David. God says, I have never seen a man like David, a man who was after my own heart, and a man who fulfilled my purpose for his generation. What is God gonna say about you at the end of your time? Or what is God saying about you now? Think about that and subscribe. Kwaheri.